Abandoned in church, I discovered an incredible truth revealed by a mysterious man in a suit. Samuel sat among the empty pews of the church, his feet tapping absently on the cold floor while the towering stained glass stared down at him in judgment. He had never anticipated being alone during the retreat, his family's absence gnawing at the edges of his heart. Abandonment was the cruelest twist of fate when hope should have been soaring. His parents had lost their jobs, money had turned their house into a battlefield. This sacred place had become a cage for his disillusionment. Why did I ever think I belonged here? He thought bitterly. Just then, a figure emerged from the shadows, striding confidently down the aisle. Jacob was unlike anyone Samuel had seen in this small town. He wore a tailored suit, the kind that whispered of power and ambition. A spark ignited within Samuel, a mix of curiosity and desperation. This man radiated an aura of possibility that seemed so foreign in a town weighed down by struggles. Interesting place for a retreat, isn't it? Jacob's voice cut through the silence, drawing Samuel from his inner whirlwind. They exchanged glances, and Samuel could feel an electric charge rise between them. The man continued, "You're not just a student, are you? I can see it in your eyes. You want more." Samuel hesitated, yearning to share his dreams and frustrations, but fear held him captive. The prestigious internship at a tech firm loomed over him like a tantalizing fruit hanging just out of reach. Yet in that moment, it felt like a betrayal. His family counted on him to help put food on the table, to support them through their financial storm. Was it worth pursuing a path that could leave his loved ones behind? "Your intelligence can change everything," Jacob pressed, as if sensing Samuel's internal battle. "But success often comes with sacrifice." The words echoed hauntingly in Samuel's mind, nudging memories of nights spent studying in flickering light, the weight of unfulfilled dreams clawing at his spirit. He felt a storm brewing inside him, an overwhelming mix of anger and hope. Abruptly, he recalled Jacob's unsettling words about societal barriers that kept families like his oppressed. Did he truly have the talent to break free? Or was it better to remain loyal, stuck in the shadows of ambition for the sake of family? A wave of despair washed over him, thickening the atmosphere. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The silence resettled over the church, heavy and suffocating. Samuel's emotions clashed violently. Thoughts raced, and his breath quickened. He recalled his little brother's innocent eyes, searching for guidance amidst the chaos at home. An internal fracture ripped wider within him, demanding he choose between his aspirations and the love he held for his family. Then a sudden screech of tires broke his concentration. The peace shattered, replaced by a rising sense of dread. He hurriedly rushed outside, pulse quickening as he grasped the depth of his family crisis that had yet to reveal itself. Facing a choice that could redefine everything, loyalty or ambition, Samuel stood frozen, caught between the weight of his family's struggle and the tantalizing allure of his dreams. The shadows of the church loomed over him, beckoning for answers. Would he dare confront the world that seemed designed to keep him down, or would he abandon all hope for the sake of loyalty? Samuel pushed through the heavy doors of the church, the sound echoing ominously in the chilly air. The world outside had transformed into a chaotic blur, with restless winds tossing leaves into a frenzy. He strained his ears against the backdrop of distant sirens and piercing shouts, a cacophony amplifying his internal turmoil. As he rushed to the scene, his mind spun. What crisis waits for me? An image of his brother, Alex, flashed in his thoughts, still too young to carry the burdens that seemed to multiply daily. In that moment, Samuel's heart raced with the urgency of a choice he had not yet made. Would he choose to stay mired in the crises that threatened to drown them, or leap toward his own potential, risking the fracture of the family bond? When he reached the street, he found a small gathering, neighbors whispering in worried tones and watching as a tow truck slowly pulled an old minivan from the ditch. Samuel stopped dead in his tracks. His parents' vehicle was recognizable by the fading blue paint and the patchy rust that painted its sides like an aging skin. Fear gripped him, squeezing his lungs. "Mom! Dad!" he shouted, voice cracking as panic flickered through his chest. The crowd seemed to part, instinctively drawing back to let him through. He was drawing closer just as a paramedic emerged, murmuring things that held no meaning to him, words drowned out by the drumming of his heart. His parents stumbled from the van, looking shaken but relatively fine. Relief surged through him, pulling him closer. Yet, the looming weight of their circumstances hovered just above their heads. "We were just trying to get to the grocery store," his mother explained, tears welling in her eyes as she pulled him into an embrace that grounded him amidst chaos. Samuel's heart ached for her as she whispered apologies for not being able to feed them like before. Conflicted emotions warred within him. He wanted to reassure her, but he also could feel the quiet voice of ambition that Jacob reignited within him. As they began to walk home, Samuel's thoughts remained clouded. He sensed both the heavy burden of obligation to his family and the tantalizing promise of something bigger. That radiant ambition was far more valuable than anything he'd ever known. Yet the cost of that ambition could easily shatter the fragile peace of their family. "Maybe I can help," he pondered, hoping a job might provide financial relief. Yet deep down, beneath layers of uncertainty, something flickered, an idea sparked by Jacob's bold conviction that he could change everything. Was it wrong to chase a dream when his family desperately needed him? A quiet voice inside whispered, "You can be both the support and the ambition." Reaching home, their house loomed before him like a castle full of shadows, echoing his newly formed vision of duality. Before entering, Samuel hesitated, caught between two futures, unsure if pursuing one could complete the other. His phone buzzed in his pocket, snapping him to attention. A notification flashed, revealing a message from his school about an upcoming seminar focused on entrepreneurship, a chance that resonated with Jacob's words. It felt like a lifeline thrown into turbulent seas. Caught up in a surge of determination, he made a decision. "I will go." The thought was both frightening and exhilarating, offering a tantalizing quest that seemed to promise growth and, paradoxically, security. Turning toward the door, Samuel was grappling with the monumental weight of his chosen path. But as he stepped inside, he glanced back over his shoulder, dread creeping in. Was he truly ready to face the trials to come? What if he failed, not just himself, but everyone who depended on him? The uncertainty loomed larger than ever, pulling at his ambition like a hidden anchor. Samuel took a deep breath, the heaviness lighting up with a new resolve. The moment had come to confront both his family's struggles and his own aspirations. As he stepped into the chaotic embrace of his home, he realized that the journey ahead would forge either a bridge or a chasm between ambition and loyalty. What lay ahead was unpredictable, and he would soon discover if he had the strength to balance the two without losing either. The seminar loomed on the horizon, a bright beacon against the murky backdrop of Samuel's daily life. As he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, he replayed his morning. Coffee brewed quietly in the kitchen while his parents stepped into their routines, their faces carrying the weariness of their struggles. Samuel felt the weight of his decision pressing down. Should he throw himself into uncharted waters or remain anchored to their needs? At school, whispers of ambition buzzed around him. His friends dreamed aloud of future ventures, eyes shining with possibilities. In contrast, Samuel felt an impending sense of isolation in the changing dynamics of his own life. What he craved was a way to merge the responsibilities at home with a path toward his own dreams. It was a fragile balance he knew he had to explore. Yet a fear of disappointing loved ones crept into the corners of his mind. The day of the seminar arrived, cloaked in a nervous energy. He dressed carefully, donning the best shirt he owned, a simple button-up that felt out of place among the bright colors of his peers. He had watched Jacob formulate plans, inspired others. Samuel wanted to grasp that same determination, but doubt clung stubbornly to his heart. As he entered the auditorium filled with the hum of enthusiastic students, he took a singular breath, transforming it into resolve. The speaker, a successful entrepreneur dressed in an impeccably tailored suit, radiated charisma. His stories of struggle, failures, and eventual triumphs sparked energy among the crowd. Samuel leaned forward, captivated. The entrepreneur's words sliced through the ambience of uncertainty. Failure isn't your enemy, it's your best teacher. Embrace it, learn from it, and let it propel you forward. Intrigued, Samuel pondered the implications of that statement in relation to his life. He felt a burgeoning recognition. Perhaps failure wasn't something to fear, but an experience that could forge resilience. After the presentation, as students packed up and excitement rippled through the room, Samuel's heart thudded with an almost reckless determination. He approached the speaker, drawn like a moth to a flame. "How do you know when to take the leap?" he asked, the question bursting forth, framed by urgency. The entrepreneur smiled, recognizing the conflict etched on Samuel's face. "You'll never know if you don't try. But consider this. The first leap is into the unknown, but it strengthens your ability to take the next jump. Support your family, but remember to carve out your own space. The world won't bend to your fears. It rewards those who dare to face them." Samuel absorbed the advice, the words sinking deep like roots through soil, grounding him. After a brief exchange, they parted ways, but not before Samuel offered an earnest "Thank you." Rushing through those school hallways felt different now. Each step resonated with promise. He had faced the possibility of failure and found encouragement. Motivated by the idea of learning through experience, Samuel realized he held the reins of his own future. At home, the familiar chaos enveloped him. The sound of his parents exchanging persistent worries and Alex's innocent laughter echoed through the hall. Yet this time, Samuel stood taller. The dichotomy of family ties and ambition thrummed more clearly. He sought balance, knowing it wouldn't be easy, but determined to try. In the days that followed, Samuel began exploring job options after school, moving past apprehension. He crafted resumes, designed clever pitches, and reached out to local shops for opportunities. Each rejection stung, but it became fuel, igniting his resolve rather than extinguishing it. His ambition morphed from a whisper to a roar, charting a course for a future of his own design. But as he began to climb toward his goals, shadows loomed. Alex's needs pulled on Samuel's heart, and everyday struggles chipped away at his focus. Was he truly equipped to juggle both aspirations and familial obligations? The echo of that entrepreneur's voice rang in his mind, yet doubt lingered. One evening, as Samuel sifted through his old schoolwork, searching for inspiration, a particular paper caught his eye. It was scribbled with ambitions he had long buried. Torn between nostalgia and necessity, a surge of motivation coursed through him. What had he really wanted to pursue? Grabbing a pen, he began drafting a plan, not just for a job, but for a small business idea he'd once dreamed of, one that could help his family too, something to blend ambition with obligation. As he scribbled fevered notes, the urgency of what lay ahead began to crystallize, a revelation lurking just out of reach. He needed a clear strategy, but soon he would find that bringing his vision to life would require more than just determination. The next morning, staring at that paper, a flicker of doubt crept in again. What if this was just another failure waiting to happen? The next moment, his resolve hardened. He understood now that mistakes were part of the journey. But that clarity, exhilarating as it was, came with its own shadows. Samuel knew he was on the brink of something significant, teetering between his past desires and an uncertain future. The choice ahead would reveal not only his capacity to succeed, but whether he could truly honor both his family and his dreams without sacrificing one for the other. And as he gathered his materials to approach the day, a recurring thought haunted him. How far could he push the boundaries of his commitment? Could he effectively merge these worlds? In the back of his mind, a deeper challenge brewed, one that threatened to shatter the fragile harmony he sought. The moment had come to find out if he could face more than just personal doubts. Undoubtedly, the ultimate test lay just around the corner. Would the pursuit of his dreams cost him more than he could bear? The sun crept over the horizon, casting a faint light through the curtains as Samuel sat at the worn kitchen table, his mind still racing with thoughts. The paper he had scrawled on lay open in front of him, the ink a testament to his determination, yet tinged with uncertainty. He was ready to act, yet tethered by the apprehension of how his ambitions would affect the people closest to him. His parents' voices buzzed softly in the background, typically interspersed with the mundane sounds of their morning routine. Samuel glanced over at them, his father, pacing with a furrowed brow, and his mother, lost in a flurry of last-minute preparations. They had spent years sacrificing for him and Alex. Could he now reach for something more without derailing their hard-fought stability? Each day he'd wake with renewed enthusiasm, yet the weight of their sacrifices often rendered him immobile. Husbands and fathers had their own dreams, right? He couldn't help but wonder if his father ever considered abandoning his brick-laden life on the construction site. It wasn't a life he wanted to escape from. It was simply about creating something of his own. As he sipped his coffee, balancing time and dreams, a memory flickered to life, the entrepreneurial speaker's voice. "Face your fears," it echoed. Already, he was probing deeper, identifying a niche market that hardly anyone had tapped. If he could launch a business that highlighted local artisans and promote handcrafted goods, wouldn't that not only fulfill his ambition, but also sustain his family? It was a bold idea, yet a glimmer of something new began surfacing within him. But entire days slipped by without him taking any substantial first steps. Between picking up Alex and helping with dinner, hours blurred into one another, leaving Samuel feeling like a ghost in his own life, visibly present yet increasingly disconnected from his desires. He knew he had to confront the uneasy truth that stagnation could very well become his reality if he didn't disrupt the status quo. Fueled by urgency, Samuel made the decision to claim a portion of his evenings for strategizing. He salvaged quiet hours after dinner, wrestling not only with logistics, but the mental barriers that had presented themselves. Not just about finances or business plans. It was about his very identity, the sum of all responsibilities and what kind of man he wanted to be moving forward. Gradually, he picked up tidbits of entrepreneurial wisdom from online forums, peppered with heavy doses of practicality. He began sketching blueprints for his business, using the available resources at his disposal while still navigating the complexities of family obligations. The first small step arrived. A directory for local artisans was born, a platform to connect buyers to makers. This involvement gave him a rush, even as the anxiety lingered in the corners of his mind. A series of initial phone calls, a few potential partnerships, and he could envision a reality where he was more than a student, more than just a caretaker. He was an innovator, paving a path toward success. But each opportunity he considered came with ramifications. Would any labor for his dreams see him fail again? Faced with ramifications both personally and professionally, Samuel wrestled with the nature of passion versus obligation. It was no longer merely about ambition. It was a fundamental test of trust in himself and in valuing what he had. Then darkness settled in one night as family tensions flared. Accusations flew, voices amplified in frustration about unfulfilled dreams and expectations. Samuel felt the sharp pang of guilt atop his drive. Was he simply accelerating forward while others were still slogging through? In that pivotal moment, a realization crashed upon him like a wave. While he could see a path illuminated, it was how he lit the path for others that truly mattered. He would need to showcase his aspirations while actively lifting others. If he remained true to intent, his personal success might serve as a catalyst for his family, fostering an environment for them to explore their own ambitions. With new resolve, Samuel reached a decision to communicate openly with his family. They needed to know what he was attempting, the burdens he perceived, and what stake they held in the vision. But uncertainty loomed. How would they react? The potential backlash felt daunting, yet every moment he hesitated added weight to the decision. The time had come. Would this critical conversation build bridges or set his endeavors ablaze? As he stared at the draft of his artisan directory again, a tremor coursed through him. He was on the cusp, knowing soon he'd not only need to confront the mirror, but also navigate the repercussions that awaited in the wake of his choices. Would brave words to his family sow seeds of support, or would they become barriers in his path? As those thoughts circled through his mind, something deep within Samuel whispered. This was the moment he had been preparing for. The first true leap awaited, and the implications would shape everything he sought to gain. The table felt heavier as Samuel prepared to speak. The heavy wooden surface seemed to absorb the weight of his uncertainty. His gaze shifted to his mother and father. They were engrossed in their own rituals, unaware of the storm brewing in their son's heart. As he watched them pause momentarily, he could sense the underlying tension, unfulfilled dreams clinging like shadows around them. Maybe it's time, he muttered under his breath. The affirmation of his resolve should have provided comfort, yet the gnawing doubt persisted. How would they respond? Would they support his aspirations or feel betrayed? Fear had a way of anchoring people to the familiar, often at the cost of forfeiting future possibilities. As the evening transitioned into night, Samuel gathered his courage. He felt the directory beneath his fingers. It was both an object of creation and vulnerability. Each local artisan he had connected with mattered. The stories, the craft, the perseverance, all mirrored his own struggles. They were teaching him more about resilience than he could have ever anticipated. Drawing a breath, he spoke. "Mom, Dad, can we talk?" The tremor in his voice betrayed him, yet he pushed forward. The skin of reluctance prickled beneath his resolve as he articulated his ambitions, how he envisioned a platform that connected local artisans to their community. Each word felt like an exquisite note of music, intent on evoking the symphony of resources, dreams, and potential. His father's brow furrowed, and his mother's hands stilled. Silence pressed against them like a thick fog. Samuel's heart raced as he glimpsed reflections of their past, the hard work, the long hours, the dreams once cherished but abandoned in the grind of everyday life. Would they welcome this new light, this new chapter in their lives? "Artisans?" his father asked, skepticism lacing his tone. "People working out of their garages?" "Yes! They create amazing pieces. There's so much talent to showcase. Think of the children in our neighborhood, Dad. They need to see that anything is possible." Each sentence represented a new brick in what he aspired to build, yet he stood on shaky ground, fearful of their disapproval. His mother's gaze softened. "And you believe this will support you? That you'll make a living from this?" Samuel swallowed hard, wrestling between raw honesty and polished ambition. "I think it can. I want to do more than just get by. I want to create something meaningful for all of us." But as he bore himself naked to their judgments, the gravity of their expectations poured upon him. The table transformed into a tribunal where Samuel faced them both. Hopes, fears, and the pulse of generations lay woven into this single confrontation. "You've hardly finished school, Sam. How could you even—" his father interjected. Frustration surged, and Samuel interrupted, desperation edging into his voice. "I know it sounds crazy, but I need you to believe in me. I'm tired of feeling like I'm not living, like I'm just settling for what's easy. I want to do something that lights a fire beneath me. For us." Moments stretched painfully, filled with introspection. Samuel's heart beat a furious rhythm in his chest. As his words hung in the air, a memory surfaced, his father's ancient toolbox, worn and yet brimming with potential. That toolbox had built not just structures, but dreams. Finally, his mother broke the silence. "What if it doesn't work out?" Her voice trembled, underscoring the fragility of hope. The weight of her question absorbed the air in the room. Failure loomed like a specter. The fear of letting them down was now as palpable as his ambition. "What if it does?" Samuel countered, each word a challenge, a flickering ember urging their spirits to ignite. With that, a palpable shift occurred. The table, once a barrier, now transformed into a platform for dialogue. Each silence became a building block for trust. As they began to engage, Samuel sensed a kernel of understanding. But uncertainty still wrapped around him like a shroud. He was still navigating uncharted waters. They were drawing closer to unity, yet emerging doubts clouded the horizon. What if he was dreaming too big, too audaciously? As their conversation deepened, alternate voices echoed in Samuel's mind, a reminder that growth often spirals through discomfort. But how far could he push? Would their support become a catalyst or a hindrance? He felt another tremor through his soul. The days of quiet longing were fading. Now, with every word exchanged came revelations, awakening parts of Samuel he'd been terrified to acknowledge. He was standing at a crossroads, a spark igniting amidst the narrative he was crafting. What revelations would accompany their next steps toward acceptance? Emotions churned as Samuel realized he had embarked on a journey that might redefine him and those he cared about most. But as he wrapped his thoughts around the warmth of hope, a darker specter loomed. Doubt threatened to engulf everything he cherished. What would happen if their fears extinguished this moment? The stage was set. As Samuel gazed into his parents' eyes, he questioned if courage could withstand the pressure of sustaining familial love while pursuing a dream. What lay ahead was uncertain, but in that furnace of possibilities, Samuel understood a critical truth. His ambitions were not accessories to his life, they were foundational. Would he face the encroaching uncertainties with resolve, or would he succumb to the urge to retreat? As the night wore on, an unspoken promise ignited within him. The journey into his aspirations was only beginning. Samuel stumbled into the realization that the end of that conversation was merely a beginning, a threshold that opened onto an expansive landscape of possibility. The warmth of his mother's tentative approval mingled with the weighty skepticism reflected in his father's furrowed brow. The mixed signals propelled Samuel into a restless night, his mind swirling with visions of art, entrepreneurship, and the spark of ideas that could one day become a beacon for those hidden talents he hoped to unveil. When morning arrived, the sun's rays felt strangely new. Each beam seemed to awaken a part of him that had long been dormant. He moved through the breakfast routine with an unusual buoyancy. The coffee pot burbled, the toast crackled, and each sound propelled him further into his vision of connecting artisans to the community. However, as breakfast unfolded, Samuel couldn't shake the nagging anxiety that lay just beneath the surface. "Are you okay, Sam?" His mother's voice pulled him back to the moment, concern lacing her tone. "Yeah, I'm fine," he replied, though he felt an itch to share more, to voice the excitement bubbling inside him. But fear still clung tightly. Fear of being dismissed, of feeling like a child with a dream too big for the world he inhabited. Instead, he offered a smile that felt forced, but momentarily bridged the distance. After breakfast, he slipped into the small room he used as a makeshift office. Dust motes danced in the narrow sunlight streaming through the window, illuminating stacks of papers showcasing his ideas. He was no longer just a student hoping for a decent grade. He was on the edge of becoming a visionary, a title that felt both reckless and exhilarating. Opening his notebook, he read over his sketches and notes, the fluid lines representing not just a concept, but a manifestation of latent potential. Yet another voice nagged in his mind, insistent and somewhat ruthless. Did he have what it took to make this idea a reality? What if he failed, his imagination moored fast to the same fears that had paralyzed him for so long? Pushing aside doubt like a weight he refused to carry, Samuel decided on action. He needed to confront his fears and clarify his vision. He would seek out those artisans he'd been inspired by. The potter with her delicate creations, the woodworker whose furniture had the grace of poetry. Each person he met had stories to tell, lessons to impart, and he craved that connection. With newfound determination, he crafted an email inviting them to discuss collaborative ideas. He hesitated, finger hovering over the send button, half tempted to retreat. Yet, recalling the fervent passion he had expressed to his parents, he pressed send. Each ping of the outgoing message felt like a liberation, peeling back layers of restraint that had bound him to uncertainty. Hours later, Samuel received his first reply. A thoughtful message from a local painter, intrigued by his vision and eager to meet. Excitement mixed with trepidation bubbled inside him. This was real, the kind of opportunity that could build bridges or crumble under the weight of his ambitions. How quickly he moved from contacting one artisan to envisioning a network. Soon he was drafting lists, mapping connections, letting possibilities spark before him. Ideas flowed freely, unimpeded by the obstacles his mind had tried to erect. Just as he was settling into this rhythm, a knock on the door jolted him from his reverie. It was his father, a serious expression on his face. "Can we talk?" The weight of that question hung like a stone between them. Samuel's heart quickened. Had they reevaluated after their last conversation? Was this a confrontation or another attempt at understanding? Steeling himself, he stepped into the unfolding tension. What awaited in this dialogue could either shatter his fragile ambitions or solidify them into an unyielding foundation. He had begun to sculpt his path. Now he must defend it. As they sat down, Samuel grasped the edge of his chair, preparing to confront not just his father's doubts, but his own fears of inadequacy too. What truths would emerge from this exchange, and how would they further shape the narrative he was creating? The moment had arrived, nuances of hope and dread entwined, ready to reveal the next chapter in his unfolding story. The silence between Samuel and his father felt heavy, as if every unspoken word was a brick in a wall, gradually rising around them. Samuel fought to keep his breath steady, aware that unguarded emotions could provoke a response he wasn't prepared to handle. "Son, I've been thinking about our last conversation," his father began, his tone measured yet edged with gravity. "I didn't mean to sound dismissive. I just worry about you." The admission struck a chord. Samuel felt a surge of gratitude, mixed with frustration. Gratitude for his father's concern, but frustration that it came wrapped in skepticism. "I appreciate that, Dad, but this is important to me. I want to create something meaningful, something that connects people through art." His father leaned back, arms crossed, contemplating the view outside the window, one of the few unsullied spaces in their cluttered neighborhood. "I get that, but you have to face the reality that not everyone shares your dreams. You have to think about stability, income, security." Samuel resisted the flood of anger rising within him. Stability had often meant conformity in their home, something that suffocated ambition. "I can't just give up hope because success isn't guaranteed. If I don't try, I'll regret it forever." Frank lines appeared on his father's brow as he turned sharply. "Regret won't pay the bills, Samuel. You need a fallback plan." The emphasis on safety lingered uncomfortably in the room. Samuel recognized the audience of one, his father, weighed down by years of obligation, mediocrity, and the unrelenting pressure of a life tethered to practicality. "I can build my plan. I've already begun reaching out to artisans. I'm creating connections." His father's gaze flickered, a subtle indication that perhaps he had not anticipated such actions from his son. "How many have responded?" "One," Samuel answered, heat rushing to his face, veering between shame and pride. "But it's a start. A painter wants to meet." Just one? How do you expect to build an entire network around one response? The skepticism served as thorny weeds sprouting amid Samuel's burgeoning garden of ideas. Yes, just one for now. But he's interested in collaborating. I see this as the initial step, building momentum. I know it's not much, but it's something, Samuel insisted, heart racing. His father regarded him, the tension waning just a flicker. What's the plan, then? The question ignited something deep inside Samuel. I'm going to meet him. We'll discuss our visions and see how we can create synergy between our crafts. If I can make one connection meaningful, others will follow. And if it fails? Samuel held his father's gaze, grounding himself. Then I learn and try again. I won't shy away from setbacks. They're part of the journey. I refuse to let fear dictate my choices any longer. His father studied him, frustration melting into a contemplative silence. Maybe, Samuel thought, he was beginning to recognize the resolve building within his son. And what about me? What can I do to assist? It was the first glimmer of support Samuel had heard. We could brainstorm together, find more artists. You might even have connections that could help, Samuel replied, allowing a sliver of optimism to slip into his voice. His father nodded slowly, as if weighing the newfound idea alongside skepticism. They spent the next hour mapping out names and potential collaborations, an impromptu partnership forming around a shared goal. As the conversation flowed, Samuel felt a warmth budding in the tension, something he had thought inaccessible. A bridge forming between uncertainty and mutual understanding. After his father left, Samuel sat among his sketches, the lively energy from their exchange still charging the air. He recalled the painter, the upcoming meeting, and the promise of possibilities unfurling before him. It was time to amplify his efforts, to arm himself with the tools of clarity and connection. Determined, he pulled out another blank sheet, envisioning bigger frameworks and how to connect with others in his community. His artistry would spark a change, ripples expanding outward. With newfound resolve, Samuel drafted another email, reaching out not just for support, but seeking builders, thinkers, and makers. The tapestry of artisans he envisioned transforming into a vibrant collective. And just as he began to feel the excitement of exploration reigniting in his spirit, another knock rattled his focus. Who now? The door creaked open slightly, and he caught a glimpse of his mother's concerned face peering in. Are you all right, sweetheart? I heard you talking. Will she bring doubts of her own? A new wave of uncertainty crashed over him. Would his ambition withstand scrutiny from both parents? As she stepped further into his room, the tension lingered. A new conversation awaited, and with it, the pressing question of how Samuel would advocate for his vision amidst opposing energies. Samuel leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms tightly against his chest. The weight of his mother's arrival felt almost tangible, as if the air had thickened with her apprehension. He eyed her, searching for signs of support or skepticism, but finding only a mix of concern and curiosity. Her presence twisted the tension in the room anew, reflecting his own conflict about pursuing his dreams despite his father's warning. I'm okay, Mom, just discussing some ideas, he finally replied, his voice steady but laced with an underlying unease. Are you sure? You sounded intense, she pressed gently, her head tilting ever so slightly as if she wished to peer deeper into his thoughts. I'm just trying to figure out how to connect with more artists, he explained, striving for clarity while hiding the tremor in his chest. I had a conversation with Dad about it. He's trying to understand my ambition. Her brow furrowed slightly, a signal to Samuel that his words hadn't entirely convinced her. Washing away the self-doubt that flickered in his mind, he pressed forward. A painter is interested in collaborating. We're meeting soon to discuss our visions. That's exciting, sweetheart, she encouraged tentatively. But are you prepared for the challenges that might come with it? You might be putting a lot on the line. Fingers tapping against his desk involuntarily, Samuel felt the flicker of doubt re-emerging. Who was he kidding? The very notion of collaboration with a seasoned artist was both thrilling and terrifying. I know it won't be easy, but isn't that the point? His voice had gained a firm edge, blending determination with vulnerability. I can't let fear and criticism dictate my path anymore. His mother met his gaze, reading the embers of resolve burning within him. What if this doesn't go as planned? She asked, her voice softening. Then I'll learn. Every setback can teach me something valuable, he replied, his pulse quickening as he sensed the conversation teetering on the edge of revelation. I've learned already from each sketch I've discarded. It's essential to my growth. This truth, he voiced, carried weight, yet he found himself wrestling with it still. The nagging question of self-worth, intertwined with aspirations, loomed large in his conscience. Did he truly believe in his ability to create something meaningful? Or was he merely reacting against the suffocation of mediocrity he had felt in his upbringing? Sometimes we have to take risks to find who we are, she conceded quietly, her tone wavering between encouragement and caution. Just be careful. Not everyone will share your vision. People can be harsh. Her statement echoed Samuel's earlier conversation with his father. Though hesitance lingered, he asserted, "But what if someone appreciates what I create? There are people out there who understand the struggle of artistry." "Then you'll find them," she replied, a flicker of pride illuminating her expression. "Just remember that it takes time. It's not a race." Suddenly, an idea sparked within him, cutting through the fog of uncertainty. "What if I host a small gathering?" The words spilled forth with excitement, and he saw his mother's eyebrows rise in surprise. A chance for local artists to connect, share ideas, maybe even showcase a piece or two? "Samuel, that sounds ambitious," she said, though the hesitation in her voice had transformed into intrigue. "Yes, it could be the platform I need to build a network." He was practically vibrating with enthusiasm now. "And we can invite that painter. It could ignite more collaborations. I can introduce myself and open dialogue. I need to embrace action instead of waiting for opportunities to find me." His mother searched his eyes, the intensity of his passion igniting something genuine in her expression. "Just promise me you won't lose sight of yourself in this." Samuel took a deep breath, the satisfaction of self-assertion washing over him. "I won't. This is me discovering what I can truly offer." With determination solidified in his chest, he reached for his laptop once more, aiming to draft the invitation. As his fingers glided across the keys, he felt momentum building within him, a current leading him toward the unknown. There was still so much work ahead, so many artists to contact, details to organize, and perhaps challenges to face. But Samuel relished the urgency of the task, the clarity of his vision taking form. As the room filled with the soft click of keys, his mother watched quietly. The lingering question of how his aspirations might evolve yet hung in the air. Would he navigate these networks with the grace he craved, or would the weight of skepticism crush his creativity? Then a sudden thought struck him. If he were to reach beyond mere invitations, what if he could inspire artists to share their stories, their struggles? What if he too could weave his narrative into the fabric of the collective? Suddenly, an unexpected wave of anxiety washed over him. The time had arrived to face not just external challenges, but the emotional blocks he had erected over time. Would he have the courage to forge connections organically, without letting past fears overshadow his ambitions? As he paused, staring at the blank screen filled with potential, he realized his journey was only beginning, not just toward external collaboration, but an internal reckoning. Samuel's fingers hovered over the laptop's keyboard, poised to draft an invitation that could potentially change the trajectory of his artistic journey. But instead of formulating words, his mind spiraled, overwhelmed by the enormity of what lay ahead. Each beat of his heart echoed reminders of doubt, and he wrestled with an overwhelming urge to retreat into the comfort of his solitary sketches. But wouldn't that be the easy way out? He fought against the clamoring voices in his head. No, he wasn't just creating a gathering. He was carving out a space for himself, asserting his identity in an arena where criticism lurked like a shadow. The thought jolted him. He could make this happen. The gathering could be a manifestation of his commitment, his willingness to stand amidst the vulnerable chaos of creativity. Resigning to this internal battle, he shifted gears. Instead of focusing solely on logistics, he began to sketch ideas for his own presentation. If he was to invite artists to share their work, he should offer something equally personal, perhaps a piece that reflected his journey, a visual narrative of his struggles and aspirations. Sketching was therapeutic. It was a way to externalize the complexities swirling within him. With each line drawn, he began to unlock emotions he had repressed. Memories of his father's skepticism faded momentarily as a new voice emerged, his own, shouting against the confines of self-doubt. This was artistry, vulnerability expressed through creation. Yet uncertainty lingered. Would the pieces resonate outside his mind? Would they translate across the threshold from private dreams to public perception? He jolted upright from his chair, pushing the laptop aside to reach for a sketch pad. The visceral need to create rekindled. Samuel took a deep breath, allowing the rhythm of his pencil to soothe his fraying nerves. Each stroke became an affirmation of his intent, affirming that he wasn't just an artist tethered to fear. He was a creator, nurturing his potential. As he faced a blank page, a question loomed ominously at the edge of his consciousness. What if he didn't measure up? The thought was unsettling, yet it nudged him further to confront his fears directly. Without risk, there was no growth. Each piece he produced could either be met with applause or critique, but the mere act of creation was inherently valuable. Time slipped by unnoticed as he lost himself in the chaos of colors and visions emerging from his mind. Soon, however, clarity began to break through the haze. This gathering wasn't solely for the purpose of networking. It was a crucible of collaboration, a place rustling with stories and talents, all aching to breathe life into the artistic fabric of their community. Yet the closer he got to this realization, the more trepidation washed over him. How would he ensure authenticity amid the noise? Could he truly manage an event that would foster genuine connections, or would he fall victim to the very same criticisms he feared? Was he capable of guiding others through their artistic challenges while struggling with his insecurities? Shaking his head, Samuel stood up abruptly. Pacing across the room, he wrestled with the sudden flush of uncertainty. He wanted to encourage vulnerability, but was his own authenticity ready to be laid bare? What if he opened his heart, only to discover a void? As he walked, inspiration flickered in his mind. What if he included a segment in the gathering for everyone to share their challenges, a space for not just showcasing polished works, but exposing raw journeys? The thought stirred something deep within him. This would be no ordinary event. It would be an arena for exploring artists' battles and connections, a direct confrontation with the very insecurities that stalked him. As he returned to the desk to write down this new vision, his resolve solidified further. A push to gather stories was swirling around him, and maybe challenging others to be vulnerable could be the very thing he needed to embrace his own uncertainties. This newfound purpose surged within him, fueling his determination to rise above his insecurities. But with every step forward he took, another question arose. Would he be able to face the potential judgment not only from others, but from himself? The invitation was more than a call to artists. It was a call to himself to confront the fear that had shackled his creativity for too long. Deep in thought, he suddenly stopped writing and stared into space. The echo of voices, both supportive and doubting, ricocheted in his brain. He needed guidance, someone to anchor him amid his floundering confidence. Perhaps reaching out to that painter for advice wouldn't only be a networking opportunity, but a lifeline through his turbulent emotions. The thought galvanized him into action. Reaching for his phone, he opened a message to the painter, bracing himself for the vulnerability that awaited. Just as he was about to hit send, he hesitated. What if this person, already established and respected, saw him as just an inexperienced dreamer? Would he come across as desperate rather than determined? With his heart thundering in his chest, he took a deep breath and began typing. But as he hit send, he could not shake the sense that something greater was on the horizon, just waiting to be unearthed. Was he truly ready to step into this expansive unknown, to define not just his art but himself among the artists he wished to summon? As the message vanished into the void, a new realization gripped him. It was time to confront his deepest fear, the fear of failing in front of those he longed to impress. The moment of truth was fast approaching, and he would have to find out if he could transform vulnerability into strength. The day had finally arrived. Samuel stood in front of the crowd that filled the modest community center, his heart racing, palms sweating. It felt surreal, the culmination of weeks spent in preparation, of nurturing fragile dreams while grappling with self-doubt. The air thrummed with anticipation, charged with the stories and aspirations that danced between him and the local artisans he had invited. Gazing out into the sea of familiar faces mingling with wary newcomers, a wave of anxiety surged within him. Who was he to lead this gathering? A chorus of questions crashed into his mind. What if his plans unraveled? What if the artist he had assembled saw through him, a mere newcomer, tethered to insecurities? But deep within that cyclone of fear, something else stirred, a spark of resilience ignited by his journey leading up to this moment. He had faced numerous hurdles, actively sought out opportunities, and dared to reach beyond the mundane in pursuit of his passion. The memory of his father's skepticism and his mother's encouragement echoed in his heart, lending him the courage he needed. Taking a deep breath, he stepped toward the microphone, focusing his gaze on the first row where his parents sat, a mix of cautious pride etched on their faces. This mattered. They mattered. "Welcome, everyone," he began, his voice steadying as he felt the room's warmth embrace him. "I'm so grateful for all of you being here today, sharing a space where artistry and ambition can thrive together. This gathering is meant to celebrate not just our successes, but the humble beginnings and the journeys that have shaped us, all while providing a platform for connection." As the words flowed, a profound sense of accomplishment enveloped him. He found himself propelled forward, sharing personal anecdotes, the moments he had stumbled, the doubts he encountered, and the heart-pounding excitement of nurturing a vision. "And today, I want to emphasize something crucial," he continued, his voice growing stronger. "Failing is part of the process. Every artist has experienced rejection. Every creator has faced uncertainty, but persevered. We are here to uplift each other, to dismantle the walls of fear and build bridges of support." Nods of understanding rippled through the crowd, and for every flicker of doubt he had felt within himself, a collective heartbeat emerged, a shared recognition of ambition entwined with vulnerability. As Samuel engaged with the artists, allowing their stories to unfold, he felt the shadows of his insecurities recede. With each sharing of struggles and triumphs, Samuel recognized the transformative power of community. The way stories intertwined created a tapestry richer than anything he could have envisioned alone. By inviting others to speak, he simultaneously affirmed his own legitimacy. It didn't require perfection to make an impact. It required authenticity. At last, as he wrapped up his opening remarks, the applause erupted around him, echoing through the hall like a triumphant symphony. But it was not the applause that made his heart soar. It was the genuine connections forming, the light that flickered in the eyes of fellow artists as they shared their ambitions with one another. The gathering continued with vibrant discussion, collaborations that sparked unexpectedly, and an environment thick with boundless opportunity. Samuel walked among them, listening, witnessing the relationships bloom, grateful that he had pushed through the very doubts that had once paralyzed him. He wasn't just helping others, he was reinforcing his own identity, an artist, a catalyst for connection, and a leader. As the day came to an end, Samuel's heart swelled with pride. He had claimed his space in the world, no longer merely a passive observer, but an engaged creator, fostering growth for himself and others. The blend of lessons imparted this day filled him with the conviction he had long sought but was often elusive amid struggles at home. Among the cacophony of voices that filled the room, he spotted his parents again, emotion glistening in their eyes, a reflection of their unwavering support and belief in him. In their gaze, he recognized the transformation not just within himself, but the bond that was reaffirmed and strengthened between them. This wasn't merely a gathering of artists. It was where ambition met loyalty, where dreams merged harmoniously with the pulsating reality of vulnerability and hope. Samuel had conquered the storm of doubt. He had launched a new chapter, solidly positioning himself as not only an artist, but a connector in his community. This journey was far from over, and certainly filled with uncertainties yet to come. But one truth rang clear. He had changed. From the raw confusion of his path to crystal clarity in understanding his worth, he understood now that he could achieve both ambition and connection simultaneously. And perhaps the most vital lesson had emerged strikingly clear. Not that it was simply about the artwork, but also about the artists, their shared experiences, the courage to confront fears, and the relentless pursuit of dreams that would shape the world. With redefined purpose, Samuel stepped into the next chapter with boundless confidence, ready to embrace whatever challenges awaited, no longer confined by fear, but emboldened by the knowledge that he belonged and he could thrive. Now, as you reflect on this enlightening journey of ambition, support, and personal growth, you need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss out on more exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others discover this transformative journey. Comment below your reactions and theories about Samuel's incredible growth and this poignant conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need a spark of inspiration in their lives. Don't wait even one more second to share this powerful message. Remember, only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand how vital it is to support the channel through these actions.